The rain was cold against my face as I stood on the sidewalk, staring at the cardboard boxes scattered across the wet pavement. My clothes, my books, my father's old watch, everything I owned was thrown out like garbage. I was 52 years old, and my own son had just locked me out of the house I'd been paying a mortgage on for 3 years. Dad, I can't have a jobless loser dragging down my reputation. Marcus had set the crack in the door, his voice cold and flat. Amanda agrees. You're done here. Find somewhere else to go. Amanda, his wife of 2 years, the woman who smiled at me over Sunday dinners while calculating how much longer I'd be useful. I should have seen it coming. The whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. The way Marcus started talking about his house, as if the down payment I'd given him never existed. I picked up the nearest box. Inside was the framed photo of Marcus at his college graduation. I'd worked double shift for months to pay his tuition. That memory felt like it belonged to someone else now. I took the boxes to a storage unit I could barely afford and checked into the cheapest motel on the east side of town. The room smelled like old cigarettes and broken promises. I sat on the bed and pulled out my phone. 42 missed calls from bill collectors. 0 messages from my son. 3 days ago, I'd been the operations director at Titan Core Industries, one of the largest manufacturing firms in the state. I'd spent 18 years climbing that ladder, earning respect, building systems that saved the company millions. Then Gerald Hutchins, the new CEO, decided to restructure. That was the word he used. What he really meant was, anyone over 50 is expendable. They gave me a severance package that barely covered 2 months of expenses. I was too proud to ask Marcus for help at first. I thought I'd find something new quickly. 52 with nearly 2 decades of experience? Companies should have been lining up. They weren't. Every interview ended the same way. We'll be in touch. Then silence. I spent the next morning at a corner diner, nursing burnt coffee and scanning job listings on my laptop. A man in a worn jacket sat down across from me without asking. He was older than me, maybe 65, with sharp gray eyes that seemed to see straight through people. You look like a man who just lost everything, he said, his voice rough but not unkind. I almost told him to leave. Instead, I just nodded. Name's Vincent Park, he continued. I've been watching you. You've been here 3 mornings in a row, always on that computer, always looking like the world just ended. He slid a business card across the table. I'm starting something. Something that's going to shake up this entire industry. I need people who know how things really work. People who've been screwed over by the system and want to build something better. The card was simple, white with black letters. VP Manufacturing Solutions. Vincent Park, founder. Why me? I asked. Because desperation makes people hungry, Vincent said. And I need hungry. Vincent's something turned out to be a complete overhaul of how manufacturing contracts were handled. He'd spent 30 years in the industry, watching companies waste money on inefficient systems and outdated processes. He had a plan to build a consulting and management firm that would undercut the giants by being smarter, faster, and leaner. I've got the vision and the seed money, Vincent explained over lunch that same day. What I don't have is someone who knows the operational side inside and out. Someone who can build systems, manage logistics, and make things run like a machine. That's me, I said. That was my entire job at Titan Core. Vincent leaned back and studied me. Here's the deal. I can't pay you much right now. Barely above minimum wage for the first 3 months. But if this works, if we land the contracts I'm chasing, you'll own 20% of the company. Full partner. 20% of nothing is still nothing, but I had nothing to lose. I shook his hand. I threw myself into the work like a drowning man grabbing a rope. Vincent had secured a small office space in a building that had seen better decades. The carpet was stained, the walls were beige, and the air conditioner only worked on Tuesdays. It was perfect. We worked 16-hour days. Vincent handled the business development and client meetings while I built the operational framework. I designed workflow systems, created cost projections, and mapped out supply chain solutions that could cut manufacturing expenses by 30%. Every night, I collapsed in my motel room, too exhausted to think about Marcus or the house or the boxes in storage. One evening, Vincent knocked on the door of my motel room. He had Chinese takeout and a bottle of cheap whiskey. We sat on the floor because there was only one chair. "You got a son, right?" Vincent asked. "I saw the picture in your wallet." I nodded, not trusting myself to say more. "He know what you're doing?" "He doesn't care." Vincent poured 2 drinks. "Then we make him care." 6 weeks in, we landed our first major client, a mid-sized automotive parts manufacturer that was hemorrhaging money due to poor logistics management. They were skeptical at first. Vincent Park Manufacturing Solutions was barely a name on paper, but I presented a 30-page operational audit that identified 17 critical inefficiencies and provided step-by-step solutions for each one. The owner, a no-nonsense woman named Claire Donovan, read the entire document in silence. Then she looked up at me and said, "When can you start?" We saved her company $400,000 in the first quarter. Word spread fast. Within 2 months, we had 3 more clients. Within 3, we had 8. Vincent hired 2 junior analysts and moved us to a better office. My paycheck finally looked like something a person could live on. I found a small apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I bought a bed, a couch, and a coffee maker. On the kitchen counter, I placed a framed photo of Marcus at graduation. Not out of love, out of fuel. Marcus called me for the first time in 2 months. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hey, Dad," he said, his tone casual, like nothing had happened. "Haven't heard from you in a while. You doing okay?" "I'm fine," I said, keeping my voice neutral. Good. Listen, I heard through a friend that you're working at some startup or something. Manufacturing consulting." So he'd been asking around. "Interesting." "That's right." "How's it going?" He was probing, trying to figure out if I was worth his attention again. "It's going well," I said simply. There was a pause. "Well, that's great, Dad. Really great. Maybe we should get dinner soon. Catch up." "Maybe," I said. Then I hung up. Vincent had been right. Make them care. But not by begging, by succeeding. By month 4, Vincent Park Manufacturing Solutions was becoming a real player in the industry. We weren't just consultants anymore. We started taking on full management contracts, essentially running entire production operations for companies that couldn't do it themselves. Our client list had grown to 15 companies, and our revenue had tripled. Vincent called me into his office one morning with a grin I'd never seen before. "We just got a call from Preston Bradley." I knew the name. Everyone in manufacturing knew the name. Preston Bradley was the CEO of Northline Industrial, one of the biggest firms in the region. They were the kind of company that made firms like Titan Core look small. "He wants a meeting," Vincent continued. "He's heard about what we did for Claire Donovan and the others. He wants to know if we can do the same for him." This was the call that could change everything. If we landed Northline, we wouldn't just be a success story. We'd be legitimate. We'd be powerful. "When's the meeting?" I asked. "Friday, and he specifically asked to meet you." The Northline Industrial Headquarters was a tower of glass and steel that seemed to pierce the sky. I'd walked past 100 times and never imagined I'd be inside. Now I was sitting in a conference room on the 32nd floor, across from Preston Bradley himself. He was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were operational reports, financial projections, and a list of problem areas within his company. "I'll be blunt," Bradley said. "We're bleeding money in our logistics and supply chain divisions. Middle management is bloated. Systems are outdated, and nobody seems to know how to fix it. I've heard you do. Prove it." I spent the next 2 hours dissecting his company's failures with surgical precision. I identified bottlenecks in their distribution network, redundancies in their staffing structure, and outdated software that was costing them millions annually. Vincent watched in silence as I essentially performed an autopsy on a living company. When I finished, Bradley leaned back and smiled. "You're hired. Full contract. I want you to overhaul everything." The Northline contract was a monster. It wasn't just consulting. They wanted us to take full operational control of 3 divisions for a minimum of 18 months. The fee was 7 figures. Vincent and I signed the contract in Bradley's office, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I'd built something that couldn't be taken away from me. Vincent pulled me aside as we left the building. You know what this means, right? We're not a startup anymore. We're a firm, a real one. I knew. It also meant something else. It meant I had leverage. It meant I had power. And it meant that the son who threw me out like trash was about to learn a very hard lesson. That night, I sat in my apartment and looked at Marcus's graduation photo. I picked it up, walked to the trash can, and dropped it in. I didn't need it anymore. The fuel had served its purpose. Now it was time to execute the final phase. Marcus called again 2 weeks later. This time, his tone was different. There was an edge of nervousness, maybe even desperation. Dad, I need to talk to you. Can we meet for coffee? I agreed, not because I missed him, because I wanted to see his face. We met at a chain cafe near his neighborhood. He looked tired. The cocky confidence he'd worn like armor when he kicked me out was gone, replaced by something that looked like fear. He ordered an expensive latte. I ordered black coffee. So, Marcus began, shifting in his seat. I heard you're doing really well. Working with some big companies now. I am. That's amazing, Dad. Really, I always knew you'd land on your feet. The lie was so blatant I almost laughed. Instead, I just sipped my coffee and waited. Marcus cleared his throat. Look, the reason I want to meet is I'm looking for a new opportunity. My current job, it's not really going anywhere. And I thought, since you're connected now, maybe you could help me out. Put in a good word somewhere. There it was. The ask. The audacity. I looked at my son across the table and saw a stranger. Not the boy I'd raised. Not the young man I'd sacrificed for. Just someone who wanted something from me. You wanted to help you find a job. I said slowly. Yeah, I mean, you know people now, right? Big people. I've got experience in project management. I could be a real asset to the right company. I set my coffee down. Marcus, do you remember what you said to me 3 months ago? His face tightened. Dad, You called me a jobless loser. I continued, my voice calm and even. You said I was dragging down your reputation. You threw my belongings onto the street in the rain and locked the door. I was under a lot of stress, Marcus said quickly. Amanda was on me about money, and You made a choice, I interrupted. You chose to believe I was worthless the moment I stopped being useful to you. So now I'm going to make a choice. Marcus's face went pale. What does that mean? I stood up. It means no. Find your own job. Build your own future. I'm done carrying you. I left him sitting there, staring into his overpriced latte. Vincent Park Manufacturing Solutions continued to grow at a pace that shocked even us. The Northline contract was a massive success. Within 3 months, we'd cut their operational costs by 40% and streamlined their entire supply chain. Preston Bradley was so impressed, he referred us to 2 other major firms. By month 7, we had 23 active clients and a staff of 15. Vincent moved us into a sleek new office building downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the river. My title was now Chief Operations Officer, and my 20% stake in the company was worth more than I'd made in my entire career at Titancore. I bought a house. Nothing extravagant, but comfortable. 3 bedrooms, a small yard, and a garage. I furnished it slowly, carefully, choosing each piece with intention. This wasn't just shelter. It was proof. Proof that I'd survived. Proof that I'd won. One evening, Vincent and I were working late when he looked up from his computer and said, You know we're going to need to expand again, right? We're turning down contracts because we don't have the manpower. Then we hire more people. I said, We also need more office space. And we need a director of project management. He paused. Someone good. I knew where this was going. The job posting went live on Monday morning. Director of Project Management. 6-figure salary. Full benefits. Equity options. It was the kind of position that attracted hundreds of applicants within hours. Marcus applied on Tuesday. I saw his name in the system and felt nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. Just cold calculation. Vincent noticed me staring at the screen. That your son? Yeah. You want me to reject it automatically? I thought about it for a long moment. Then I shook my head. No. Let him interview. I want to see what he's made of. Vincent raised an eyebrow. You're playing a dangerous game. I'm playing chess. I corrected. And he doesn't even know he's on the board. We scheduled Marcus for an interview 2 weeks out. Standard process. Panel interview with 3 senior staff members. I wouldn't be in the room, but I'd watch from the observation feed. I wanted to see him squirm. The day of Marcus's interview arrived. He showed up 15 minutes early, wearing a suit I recognized. I'd bought it for him 2 years ago for a job interview that he'd aced, back when I still believed in him. The interview panel consisted of Vincent, our head of operations, and our senior analyst. I watched from my office on the live video feed. Marcus was nervous. He stumbled through his opening introduction, oversold his experience, and gave vague answers to specific technical questions. Vincent asked him why he wanted to work for VP Manufacturing Solutions. I've been following your company's growth, Marcus said, his voice steadier now. You're disrupting the industry with innovative approaches to operational management. I want to be part of that vision. I believe my skills in project coordination and team leadership would make me a strong asset. It was a good answer. Rehearsed, but good. Then Vincent asked the question I've been waiting for. I see you've had some gaps in your employment history. Can you explain those? Marcus hesitated. I've been selective about opportunities. I didn't want to settle for something that wasn't the right fit. Translation. He'd been unemployed and too proud to admit it. After the interview ended, the panel reconvened in my office. Vincent closed the door and sat down heavily in the chair across from my desk. He's mediocre, Vincent said bluntly. Average resume, average interview, no real standout qualities. In a normal applicant pool, I'd pass without a second thought. But he's your son. So I'm asking you, what do you want to do? I leaned back in my chair and considered the question. What did I want? Revenge would be easy. Reject him outright. Let him flounder, watch him fail. But that felt hollow. Empty. No, what I wanted was something else. Something more poetic. Make him an offer, I said. Vincent blinked. You're serious? Completely, but not for director. Offer him a junior project coordinator position. Entry level. $40,000 a year. No equity. Make it clear that advancement is based solely on performance. If he wants to prove himself, he'll have to earn it. Vincent's face broke into a slow smile. You're giving him a chance to grovel. I'm giving him a chance to learn. Marcus accepted the offer. I wasn't surprised. His mortgage was overdue. His car lease was about to expire, and Amanda had started asking uncomfortable questions about their finances. Desperation makes people flexible. His first day was a Monday. I watched from my office as he arrived, wide-eyed and nervous. Clutching a leather portfolio, I'm sure Amanda bought him. He was shown to a small cubicle in the corner of the operations floor. No window, no privacy, just a desk, a computer, and a stack of files that needed organizing. I didn't speak to him that first week. I let him settle into the reality of his situation. He was no longer the son of a powerful man. He was the lowest person on the ladder, reporting to people younger than him, doing work that was tedious and unglamorous. At the end of his first week, I passed him in the hallway. He looked up, surprised, and opened his mouth to say something. I just nodded and kept walking. No words, no recognition, just a silent reminder. You're here because I allow it. Marcus worked hard. I'll give him that. For the first month, he showed up early, stayed late, and completed every assignment without complaint. He was professional with his co-workers, respectful to his supervisors, and slowly started to prove he wasn't completely useless. But I could see the humiliation eating at him. He'd gone from thinking he was destined for greatness to filing expense reports and coordinating supply deliveries. And he knew, everyone in the office knew, that his father was a COO. The man who could have given him a better position, but chose not to. One afternoon, Marcus knocked on my office door. I looked up from my computer. "Can I talk to you?" he asked, his voice tight. "Come in." He closed the door behind him and sat down without being invited. There was anger in his eyes now, simmering just below the surface. "Why did you do this?" Marcus asked. "Do what?" "This. Hiring me for the lowest position in the company. Making me look like a fool in front of everyone. Is this some kind of revenge?" I set down my pen and looked at him directly. "No, Marcus. This is a lesson." "A lesson?" Marcus's voice rose. "You're punishing me because I kicked you out. That's what this is." "You didn't just kick me out," I said calmly. "You threw my belongings onto the street in the rain. You called me a loser. You decided I had no value the moment I lost my job. So yes, this is a lesson. You're learning what it's like to start from nothing, to be treated like you're disposable, to have to prove your worth instead of having it handed to you." Marcus stared at me, his jaw clenched. "I apologize for that." "No, you didn't. You called me 3 months later asking for a favor. That's not an apology. That's opportunism." "So, what do you want from me?" Marcus demanded. "You want me to beg? You want me to grovel and tell you were right?" "I don't want anything from you," I said. "If you want to stay here, you'll do your job and earn your place like everyone else. If you don't, there's the door. Your choice." Marcus stood up, his hand shaking. For a moment, I thought he was going to explode. Then he turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. Marcus didn't quit. He stayed. And over the next 2 months, something changed. The anger faded, replaced by something that looked almost like humility. He stopped showing up to work looking for shortcuts and started genuinely trying to learn. He asked questions. He took notes. He volunteered for the projects no one else wanted. One of our senior analysts, a sharp woman named Kendra Wallace, pulled me aside one afternoon. "Your son's actually pretty good when he stops trying to prove he's better than everyone else. He coordinated that logistics audit last week without a single mistake." I was impressed. I nodded but said nothing. Vincent noticed too. Kid's got potential. Rough around the edges, but potential. You thinking about moving him up? "Not yet," I said. "He's not ready." But privately, I wondered if maybe he was starting to be. 3 months into his employment, Marcus knocked on my door again. This time, his posture was different. Less confrontational. More uncertain. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. "Sit." He sat down and folded his hands in his lap. "I owe you an apology. A real one." I waited. "When you lost your job, I panicked," Marcus began, his voice low. "Amanda kept saying we couldn't afford to support you, that it would drag us down. And I listened to her because it was easier than admitting I was scared. Scared that if you stayed, people would think I was weak, that I couldn't take care of my own family." He looked up at me, and for the first time in years, I saw the boy I used to know. Vulnerable. Honest. "I was wrong," Marcus continued. "I threw you out because I was ashamed. Not of you, of myself. And I've spent the last 6 months realizing that everything I thought I earned was because of you, the house, the education, the opportunities. You gave me all of it, and I repaid you by treating you like garbage." He paused, his voice breaking slightly. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know that I understand now. I understand what I did, and I'm sorry." The silence stretched between us. I could feel the weight of his words, the sincerity behind them. This wasn't manipulation. This was regret. "Apology accepted," I said finally. Marcus looked up, surprised. "Really? Really? But that doesn't erase what happened. It just means we can move forward." Over the next 6 months, Marcus proved himself. He moved up from junior coordinator to full project manager, earning every promotion through performance, not favoritism. He worked longer hours than anyone, took on the most difficult clients, and became one of the most reliable people on our team. Vincent pulled me aside one day with a grin. "Your kid just saved the Henderson contract." They were about to walk, and he turned around with a logistic solution I didn't even know was possible. He's got your brain. He's got his own brain. I corrected. He's just finally using it. At the 1-year mark of Marcus's employment, Vincent Park Manufacturing Solutions was named one of the fastest-growing firms in the region. We'd expanded to 50 employees, 37 active clients, and annual revenue in the 8 figures. My 20% stake was now worth more than I'd ever imagined. Vincent called an all-staff meeting to celebrate. As people gathered in the main conference room, he pulled me aside. "I've been thinking, we need a VP of operations. Someone who can oversee the day-to-day and free us up for bigger strategy. You have someone in mind?" I did, but I wanted to make sure. I promoted Marcus to VP of operations 3 weeks later. The announcement shocked the entire office. Some people thought it was nepotism. Others thought it was insane. But Vincent backed me completely. "He's earned it," Vincent said at the staff meeting. "Not because of his last name, because of his work." Marcus stood in front of the team, visibly emotional, and thanked everyone for giving him a chance. He didn't mention me specifically, but when our eyes met across the room, he nodded, a silent acknowledgement, a wordless understanding. That night, Marcus came to my office after everyone had left. He stood in the doorway, hesitant. "I know I don't deserve this," he said quietly. "You're right. You don't. You earned it." Marcus smiled, a real smile. "Amanda left me." I looked up, surprised. "What?" "2 months ago. She said I wasn't the man she married anymore, that I'd changed. She was right. I did change, and she hated it." He shrugged. "I'm better off." I stood up and walked around the desk. For the first time in over a year, I put my hand on my son's shoulder. "Yeah, you are." A year and a half after I was thrown out onto the street, Vincent Park Manufacturing Solutions acquired Titancore Industries. The company that had fired me, that had decided I was too old and too expensive, was now ours. The board had run it into the ground with poor management and awful decisions. We bought it for a fraction of what it was worth and absorbed it into our portfolio. Gerald Hutchins, the CEO who had restructured me out of a job, was let go in the acquisition. I didn't have to lift a finger. The board did it for me. Vincent offered me the chance to speak to him before he left, but I declined. There was nothing to say. His failure was punishment enough. Instead, I walked through the old Titancore offices one last time. I saw my old desk, my old view, the conference room where I'd spent 18 years of my life. It all felt small now, like a memory that had shrunk with time. Marcus was with me. He looked around, taking it all in. "This is where you used to work?" "Yeah. It's smaller than I imagined." I smiled. "Everything is." 3 months ago, I was standing in the rain, staring at boxes on a sidewalk, wondering if my life was over. Today, I stood in my office on the 20th floor of a building I partly owned, looking out over a city I'd helped build. Vincent retired 6 months ago. He sold me his shares, making me the majority owner of the company. Marcus was now COO, running operations with the same precision I once had. We'd rebuild our relationship slowly, carefully, brick by brick. It wasn't perfect. Maybe it never would be, but it was real. One evening, Marcus came into my office with 2 cups of coffee. He set one down on my desk and sat in the chair across from me. "I was thinking," he said, "we should buy that house. The one you paid the down payment on. The one I kicked you out of." I looked at him, curious. "Why?" "Because I want to give it back to you. Officially, put it in your name. It's the least I can do." I considered the offer. Then I shook my head. "Keep it. Raise a family there. Just remember where it came from." Marcus nodded slowly. "I will." We sat in silence, drinking coffee, watching the city lights flicker on as the sun set. My son had thrown me out, and I'd built an empire in response. Not for revenge. For proof. Proof that a man's worth isn't measured by a single job or a single moment. It's measured by what he does when everything is taken away. And I had risen.